Let's talk about new books. Woo! Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel and welcome to today's video. My name is Liz and today we are going to talk about all of the books coming out in 2024. I'm so excited about this video because I have been looking into all of some of my favorite authors and new books, new releases that are coming out this year. Some are continuations of series that I've been reading or I'm in the middle of, and some are just brand new standalone books, and I am so excited to talk about them and get into them. It's so difficult to wait for some of these books, but I know they're going to be so well worth the wait, and I just have a great feeling about 2024. Without further ado, let's get on into the video. So the first book that comes out, I'm going to start with the books that are continuations of series that I'm currently reading, and then I'll get into some of the books that are just brand new releases, standalones. I do have a couple, I think maybe one. I do have one that's a brand new author I've never read before, but I'm really excited to read. And then the rest are authors that I'm familiar with and have already read their books. But first book, I think this one's a given, is House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J. Maas. That comes out January 30th. This is the third installment of the Crescent City fantasy series. No, I have not read Crescent City, the first or second book yet. However, I am starting those, I think, next week. I'm going to start reading those so that way I can have those read before the third book comes out at the end of this month. So I don't know a ton about the two books, obviously, since I have not read them, but I know in a nutshell, our main character, she is half human, half fae, and she is trying to avenge her friend's murder and also protect her city. So I have also heard from a lot of people who have read a lot of Sarah J. Maas's books that the Crescent City series is probably the most confusing fantasy world or magic system. So I am very anxious to get into that and see what that looks like. I would recommend reading Throne of Glass or ACOTAR first, just because I feel like the magic system in those series are just way easier to understand, and also those are kind of necessary to this next series because I'm assuming it all interconnects somehow. I know those first two series did interconnect just a little bit, so I'm excited to start Crescent City and see how some of my favorite characters from those past series are involved with this world. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I am very, very excited to finally read it. Next, we have Reckless, which comes out on June 2nd by Lauren Roberts. This is the second book in the Powerless trilogy. So it is a trilogy. This is the second book, so it's not the final book just yet. I read Powerless this past fall, I believe, and I absolutely loved it. I think it was a 5-star read for me. It was so good. The world that you're in was just so easy to understand. It is a world of people with supernatural abilities called elites, and if you are ordinary, so if you were born without any powers or anything, then it's a death sentence, literally. Our main character, she is ordinary, but she has been hiding in plain sight, kind of faking her ability so that way she can survive in this ruthless world. She has to hide her ordinary status from everyone, including the prince of this kingdom, who she is competing against in a set of trials of the best elites. So she gets entered into these trials kind of against her will. So good. The chemistry was off the charts in this book, and I'm so incredibly excited for Reckless. It ended in a way where I'm just itching for the next part of the story, and I'm so excited to read it. Next, we have Fate of the Sun King, which comes out June 4th. This is the third book in the Artifact of Oranos series. I started this series last year. The first book is Trial of the Sun Queen, I believe. And the series is just so good. I will say that the first book was kind of meh. The second book though, guys, I know that's really annoying to hear that you have to get through the first book to get to the second book, but the second book is so well worth it. I loved the second book. It was exactly what I wanted in this series. After reading where it left off and seeing how the third book continues, I'm so excited to see what happens. So essentially our main character, she is released from prison by a rival kingdom and she is brought in to compete. It's essentially like the selection series, but as she is brought in to compete against 9 other women for the queen title, and having her go to compete in this, it's why was she chosen? There's a lot of just hidden secrets that you just find out as you go through the series, and I just really, really enjoyed the second book. I know it's annoying. Just read the first book so you can get to the second book because it is so worth it. Next, we have The Curse of Sins, which comes out June 20th. Now, this is the second book in the Curse of Saints series. I'm currently reading The Curse of Saints Saints right now. I'm over halfway through it and I'm loving it. It is so incredibly good. I think the author posted a video on it months and months ago, and I remember screenshotting it because she said if you were fans of, you know, Fourth Wing, if you're fans of Powerless, if you're fans of just any like enemies to lovers type world, then you will love this book. And I have to agree with her. So far, every single bit of that book I have enjoyed. And it's a long book, like it's close to 500 pages, and I am loving it. So essentially the first book, our main character, she is the Queen's spy master and the Queen's third in command. So she has these abilities. So in this magic fantasy world, there are certain people who are human, there's certain people who have these actual magical abilities, whether it be like elemental, so like fire, water, air, earth, or it could be where you can control someone's feelings, you can control someone's pain level and tolerance, you can persuade people. Like there's these certain powers and abilities that these people have. Our main character has the ability to persuade. This kind of tragedy happens that awakens this power within our main character that has not been seen in anyone in over 500 years. There's like a prophecy behind the whole thing. She is then forced to work with the Queen's second in command, who is like kind of her rival. They're the closest to the Queen. He's the Queen's enforcer. And so that's where that whole enemies to lovers trope comes in. But it's so good. I'm really enjoying all of the characters, even the side characters. You get multiple point of views. You get the main character, her rival. You also get another point of view, which I'm really enjoying as well. Second book comes out in June. You better believe I already pre-ordered that. Next, we have A Promise of Peridot, which comes out on June 22nd. This is the second book in the Sacred Stones series. Now, I read A Dawn of Onyx, which is the first book, at the beginning of this year. So a couple weeks ago, I actually read that and I gave it a 5 stars. I really liked it. Really a good fantasy world. It was a shorter fantasy story than I'm used to, but I thought it was very fast paced and very fun. The romance in it was great. Loved it. And it was just a very easy to understand fantasy world. The main character, in order to save her brother, she ends up going to the enemy kingdom and is basically enlisted as their healer. She has these healing abilities that have not been seen in like anybody. She is then healing all of the king's injured soldiers for him, just so that way her brother and her family can stay safe. And that's all I'm gonna say because I don't want to give anything else away, but it was so good. I found myself like laughing and giggling at different parts when it came to the romance in it. It ended in a cliffhanger, so I'm really excited for the second book to come out in June. It looks like June's just gonna be a great reading month. I have so many books that are coming out in June and I can't wait. Next, we have Apprentice to the Villain, which comes out August 2nd. This is the second book to Assistant to the Villain. So that was a book I read this past fall. Really enjoyed it. It was very cutesy. It wasn't like a super serious fantasy world, but I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was super fun and the characters in it were just very funny. You got multiple point of views and I just found like anytime I saw from the villain's perspective, I loved those chapters so much because you get so much insight into him because he comes off as very standoffish and just very mean and cold. And our main character is very sunshine, happy, and it was just really fun seeing that contrast between them and seeing their banter between each other. And it ended in a way where it's like, I want the second book. I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did, but I really did like it and I'm very excited for the second one to come out. Next, we have Wisteria, which releases August 20th. This is the third book in the Belladonna trilogy. The trilogy, the way it goes, I feel like it's very similar almost to the Caraval trilogy in that the first book follows your main character. The second book kind of follows like your main character plus a side character. And then I feel like this third book is going to mainly follow your side character. So it's kind of weird how it goes, but I really enjoyed this fantasy world. It was different than I'm used to. Our main character, she was orphaned as a baby, and throughout her whole childhood and life, she has been bounced around from relative to relative. However, the reason why she keeps bouncing around is because these relatives keep dying around her. So she's very familiar with death, and that was one thing that was very odd and strange in this book, was that Death is a main character. He is kind of her romantic interest in these books, which sounds very odd, I know, but it actually was done very well and I really enjoyed it. And she gets brought to her last living relative and she basically has to solve a murder. Oh, and she can see ghosts. I forgot to mention that. Next, we have Valley, which is released on September 10th. This is the third book in the Galatian trilogy. I read Ledge and Chasm right before the end of the new year. Those were the last 2 books I read in 2023 and I really enjoyed them. The second book ended in a cliffhanger, so now I'm like anxiously waiting for the third book to come out later this year. But it is essentially it's a fantasy world set where there are humans and there's also this species called Galatians. They're these kind of like fae, but they have wings, and I don't know how else to describe them besides that they have wings. But our main character, she escapes escapes her town, which is like set up on top of this mountain. Each year they do kind of a sacrifice with the humans in this town. They take some and no one knows what happens to them. They get taken and never come back. But she gets taken this year, and when she goes, she manages to escape with the help of a half human, half Glacian, and it's enemies to lovers. Obviously, all these fantasy books are enemies to lovers. I feel like that's very obvious, and I'm very predictable in that way. It was very good, very interesting. I thought the second book was really good as well. Most of the time, it feels like the second book kind of doesn't live up to the first one, but I felt like the second one was almost better than the first one. So I'm really excited to see how the third one pans out. So those are all the books that are continuations of series that I'm currently in the middle of and that come out this year. Now I'm going to talk about the new books that come out this year that are like standalones from some of my favorite authors. First up, we have Bride, which comes out February 6th by Ali Hazelwood. This is a new paranormal romance between a vampire and a werewolf, so it sounds like it's gonna be Twilight. It is written by Ali Hazelwood, who is one of my favorite romance authors, and she usually writes STEM romances, and all of her books are very predictable in that way. It seems like they kind of have the same plot, but just different characters and who do different things in that field. But I love it. I eat up every single one of her books that I read. I've never not enjoyed one of her books. So I'm really excited to see how she does with a new genre. I'm really excited to see how she does with this paranormal romance, and I think it'll be really fun. I don't know. Next we have, this is a brand new book and author I've never read before, so I'm really excited to read it. It is called the Nightfire Quartet series. I have not read the first book, but the second book is what comes out. I think I'm going to order both of them once the second book comes out, but the second book is called Dance of Stars and Ashes. It releases on February 16th. So our main character, she's been raised as a prisoner and has trained to fight, but is forbidden from using her magic. So I don't really know the whole story behind her magic, but I'm excited to find out. She escapes to this marble city that's nearby where demons actually roam the streets at night. So, okay, interesting. And when she decides to fight, she meets a powerful commander with secrets himself, and sparks fly between the two. So it's going to be enemies to lovers, and I think it'll be really interesting. I think the commander, I don't know if he's a demon, because it kind of makes it sound like he drinks blood. So he's not a human. He has to be a demon. I don't know. And she has to decide whether to unleash her magic to save her home or lose herself to the darkness. So it sounds very intriguing. I'm very excited to just read them, and the covers are absolutely gorgeous. Next, we have Happily Never After, which comes out March 12th. This is about a pair of love cynics who work together as wedding objectors. When I read this summary in this book, I just thought immediately, this sounds so fun. I feel like it's going to be so funny, and I'm going to really enjoy just like how they fall in love with each other when they both don't ever want to get married and are kind of against that whole traditional idea. They are wedding objectors for people who are afraid to tie the knot, and the pair start to fall for each other. So I think it's going to be really fun, and I'm really excited to see that. And it's once again by one of my favorite romance authors, so there's that, of course. Next, we have Funny Story by Emily Henry, which comes out April 23rd. Emily Henry, love all of her books. So excited to read this. It's about two people who start fake dating to make their exes jealous who are currently dating. So the girl and the guy, their exes, start dating. So then they decide to start fake dating in order to make their exes jealous. So I don't know. I think it's hilarious. I feel like it's gonna be very funny, hence the title. But I'm just so excited. I feel like it's a little bit different than the rest of her books. I feel like a lot of her books deal with a lot of heavy subject matter. So I'm really intrigued to see if this is going to be like a more lighthearted story, or, you know, knowing Emily Henry's writing, it almost always is more of like a literary fiction book with romance in it. So we'll see. I don't know. Once again, I'm intrigued. I don't know. And the last book that I have is Not in Love, which comes out June 11th. This is a STEM romance by Ali Hazelwood. You know, sticking to what she knows, which I love. I will read all of her STEM romances. When one business tries to buy out another business, the two workers from the opposing businesses actually start having a secret affair. So I think that's gonna be really fun, and it's Ali Hazelwood, so I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna enjoy it most likely. So, and that is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. So once again, these are all of my 2024 hopefuls. I am well aware that there are so many more books that are coming out this year. I do have a list of other books that are coming out, but these are just the ones, like my top books that I'm really excited to read, and I just think this year's gonna be great. I'm already off to a great start with my reading, and I've already given like 3 books 5 stars. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Hopefully it gave you some ideas or at least some knowledge on some new upcoming books that are coming out. If you did enjoy it, please comment down below some books that you're excited for coming out this year, just so I can add them to my ever-growing pile of books that I need to read. And I will see you guys in my next video. Happy reading. Bye!